Adrian.
And then she wrote
my girl.
LOL, which could take the whole thing away, and it's just like a nice thing to say, but she's really Team Brian.
What? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Team Janelle is awesome. First time givers. Woo.
Where's my guy Gary? He's here, right? Team Brian.
Wow, that's desperate. Oh my goodness. What's up, Eva, Mike, Adrian? Woo! Adrian, you're awesome. Hashtag Team Janelle, girl. Love you. Okay, so we're talking about, I'm visiting you, Adrian. Oh my goodness, I love you. I feel like I know you. Team Janelle. All right, Brian. Oh, you sound sad over there.
You want to get up or not?
Are you serious? So we're talking about Gone with the Wind. Let's see, this one I did.
So, and Janelle's all about count. It's a 1,000-page novel.
1,025.
Not that she counted.
Because I remember looking at it. I was like...
You read it twice.
I read it twice. I love the book.
Way back when you were a kid.
Yeah, I was in high school. I didn't have kids.
Long time ago.
A long time. And I really liked it, but I like historical fiction. I like the literature. Oh, you know what I read? I read a part 2, but it wasn't from...
Part 2?
Yeah, there's a part 2. I'm going to look it up right now here. I read that one. I did not like it. But, of course, I mean, it was a different author.
Gone with the Wind 2.
And it's called...
Part 2?
Yeah, there's a part 2. It's only a book.
Still Gone with the Wind.
No.
Gone Further with the Wind.
There's a...
Slightly impacted by the breeze.
It!
I thought about leaving after a breeze, but didn't have to go this time.
Part 2 book. What is it called? I forget. I'll keep talking. It's a sequel.
There's no wind.
Oh,
it's getting hot.
Yes, that's what it is. It's called Scarlet, and it's a sequel to Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. I didn't like it, and so that's probably when I went back and reread part 1. Because it's like, it's that kind of story where you're like, oh, it has to be over. So that's why I read it over there.
But
obviously, I'm alone here.
The reason, so here's the story that's been going around. HBO Max, it's like a subscription service like Disney Plus or whatever. They have a whole bunch of stuff on there, like you can watch TV shows like Friends or DC Cinematic Universe is there. And there's several classic films. One of them was they had Gone with the Wind on HBO Max because it's supposedly, adjusted for inflation, the highest grossing film of all time, making $4 billion.
Wow.
It goes on forever. It's a long, long movie. She loved it, but HBO pulled it temporarily because of the racist depictions in it, and they're not going to reinstate it until they have one of their commentators, an African American woman, go and do a specific disclaimer beforehand, like calling out and explaining the racist depictions in it. Which can you help us with that? Like what the racist depictions? I haven't watched it.
So it glorifies or romanticizes what was going on down south. It pushed some of the common stereotypes of black people, and it also romanticized slavery in the sense that it made it look like they were just happy to be there and just kind of hanging out, which is super like horrible. That's not cool. And you see it in other moments, and you see people with comments like that. Well, so and so treated them nice. Who was it? I think it was about a George Washington story. We talked about that before.
Yeah, whenever you bring up that one of the founding fathers had slaves, people are like, oh, I bet they were real nice to him.
Yeah. We actually had a call, that's what it was, on a podcast, and somebody said, well, I mean, he could have not had the slaves and then they would have just died somewhere else. At least he was caring for them. And it's like, dude, it's slavery. In fact, because you brought up, that's what it was. During that podcast, you were like, so why would Hercules, remember? It was a slave named Hercules. Why would he run away? Which is for any slave. If you were treated nicely.
Yeah, if you're George Washington's personal slave, why would you try to run away? Because being property sucks.
Yeah. And you don't see, who was it that said, you don't see white people during that time running and being like, hey, I'm going to get was it you? You were like, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to try to be a slave. Like, nobody was like volunteering that. So that's the thing with that movie. It made it look like they were fine just taking care of.
Do you remember noticing when you were a kid reading it where you were like, wow, this is weird?
No, not at all.
Do you think you would see it now?
I would see it. I'm thinking back to the movie. I remember noticing the over romanticizing of, like the war was an interruption for Scarlett to her life and everything she had, and the frustration she had of like, I want that life back. I remember being bothered with that with the movie. Like, dude, you got slaves, and it was an interruption to like the like gentleman people. Hello, exactly. Take care of herself.
So HBO thinks that it's necessary to put a disclaimer at the beginning. You think the disclaimer is good. I got to be honest. I lean towards. It just feels like if you don't understand that this is what it was in its time, like I just don't know what planet you're on. A 1930s film about the Civil War being historically inaccurate, duh.
Adrienne agrees with you. She says it's overboard. I think for people like us, it's overboard. But I have learned with this job, because when I stayed home and I homeschooled, I was in my own little bubble. We underestimate how many people out there need that disclaimer. I think we underestimate it. But I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I being too harsh?
Well, see, when you brought that up, I did remember that there's some museums and plantations in the South at which for many years they didn't even acknowledge the slaves as part of the story of the place when you would go there. But now they're adding, not as a revisionist sense, but they're adding as a more complete picture of what life was like at those places. Like, for example, Thomas Jefferson's plantation or George Washington's plantation will now point out slave quarters and tell stories and such.
Williamsburg does a great job with that. I took my kids there in Virginia, and when they were walking through and seeing where the slaves went, where they slept, how many were in those quarters, what happened, it was, oh my gosh. You don't see that with those movies. And so it's easy to believe the lie. You don't think with years going to kind of look back and soften, it softens what slavery really was.
No, it does soften it, and I know there were people that have gone through and complained that
Keith needs help, but in terms of what we're talking about. You said it's easy to complain.
Oh, Keith, we're talking about the fact that HBO pulled Gone with the Wind, and they're going to reinstate it once they've finished creating an extended disclaimer to play beforehand about the racist content in it. Janelle leans toward that being like a good idea for
and
the
I
people who don't get it.
appreciate that it's actually going to be a video of an African American scholar explaining it. I love that.
I just tend to think I feel like it's a little unnecessary and perhaps overboard, as Adrienne said.
Yeah.
But I do know those circumstances and those plantations we just talked about. There's been comments posted online where people are like, why do they have to make me feel uncomfortable talking about these slaves there? Or this is not, why do we need to do this? They complain about it. They think, what? I'm sure they were happy. They had a nice place to live. And I have a problem with that because that's so ignorant. But I don't know. Is the person who doesn't get Gone with the Wind and its historical context and the year in which it was made, is a disclaimer going to help them? Or are they just so far gone that a disclaimer is going to annoy them and they won't even get it anyway?
Okay, let me throw this at
you. Who is that person?
If I'm watching that with my children, and not everybody homeschools, not everybody gets, my parents were awesome. I went to one of the best schools in the East Coast. If I would have been watching Gone with the Wind, they were not the kind of parents that they're going to sit there and be like, listen, this is the way that it's going to be depicted, but this is what was really happening. You don't think it helps parents contextualize, y'all, we're going to watch this, but I don't want y'all to be thinking.
I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's unhelpful. I'm just more like Adrienne indicated, where I wonder if it's just overboard a little bit. Where
so have nothing instead? Nothing.
As someone pointed out online too, like our understanding of how women should be treated has been changed as well. So now does every film prior to what, 2000,
that's deep.
Maybe 1990, do we have to put a disclaimer about how women are depicted and treated?
That's deep.
Do we have to put a disclaimer before Leave It to Beaver in that, poor June Cleaver was not allowed to get a job because it was 1950s and women didn't work outside of the home. She looked so happy, but she probably was miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't.
That's true.
I think with art, there's an exception. Now, somebody might say, yeah, I extend this across everything, even like statues and all. No. I think art,
explain the difference.
I think visual arts are different when you're depicting a time period. It stands for itself, and it's going to have its issues in the long run, and we should all realize that. But the honoring and celebrating of, for example, a Confederate general who fought and sent men into battle to die for the cause of slavery is a whole different deal than a movie that poorly depicts it.
Yeah.
I think that's just two very different things.
Megan says, I agree that we underestimate. I think that Scarlett is supposed to be a villain in her own story, but not everyone gets that. It's easy to go with her perspective since she's the main character. Keith says, okay, he got it. Amora says they do the disclaimer on Disney Plus. They started that last summer, by the way. It is a new generation.
Well, because, like, for example, there's a whole sequence in Peter Pan it's disgusting. What makes the red man red? And the caricatures they make of Native Americans are like, you watch it, you go, oh my gosh, this is Disney.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh
Disney
no.
got a few issues with some other stuff. Keith says, my mom says it was one of her favorite movies. Oh yeah, that movie is awesome. My kids haven't watched it. It's super long. Donna says, South Carolina has a great plantation with a person as a slave, giving a beautiful presentation of the days of slavery, which brought me to tears. It was the cabins with pictures. I wish I could remember the name of the plantation. Marcy says, from what I've learned, slaves were not fed and taken care of. Most slaves had to grow their own gardens, and the small children, too small for the field, had to set traps to catch small animals. Oh my goodness.
I think
the only thing the slaves were given was throwaway parts of the animals. Wow.
I think there definitely were situations like that, but you have to remember it was in the plantation owner's best interest to have their slaves able to work. So I'm not saying they were good conditions, but I think that may be the exception.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. They weren't given steak by any means. Yeah, they were given leftover parts and such, but you got to remember there's an economic incentive to be sure you don't lose any slaves because they're expensive. I know it sounds terrible.
Yeah,
but
no, it's true. It's true. Yeah. Keith says he doesn't have a problem with the inappropriate disclaimer.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't have a problem with it. I just feel like, where does this end then?
Yeah. Teresa says, a beautiful presentation of slavery. For who the slave owner? Certainly not for slaves. Read history. It was an atrocity. I have personal stories from the mouth of my grandmother, whose grandmother experienced slavery as a child.
Yeah, in fact, try to watch 12 Years a Slave, the film, and see if you can finish it. I couldn't.
What?
I just couldn't do it. It was too much. Because I think it's one of the first times someone tried to do an accurate portrayal of what it was like to live in the midst of American slavery. It's horrifying.
Is there anything like this in recent history? Let's say the last 500. I mean, like, how does that compare? Now, wait, hold up. Because I've learned about some of the stuff the Spanish were doing. Oh, my gosh. But it wasn't as systemic as American slavery.
Slavery in the Americas was truly unique in many ways. Slavery
in all of the Americas, you're saying?
For sure. I can't speak a ton to other parts of the world, but I mean the Caribbean was perhaps worse. Yeah. To work in the sugarcane fields, and for example, Dominican Republic, Hispaniola. Yeah. I mean, it was the death rate was higher.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
People were just barely viewed even less as human than in the U.S. But
so maybe we'll just say all of the colonialism of. Like, all of that is what people talk about in terms of that's the worst we've seen in history.
It's one of the, if not the worst, because for much of world history, slavery was not like that.
Yeah.
Even in biblical times, it was different. I mean, slaves were, like for example, Romans would have Greek slaves to teach their children. They were like tutors in academia.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And there were ways to earn your freedom, and I mean, anyway.
Renee says, I agree that Scarlett is the villain in the story. We're not to see her as a hero, but to see how selfishness damages relationships. She's a flawed human, like all of us. A disclaimer takes away the viewer and reader's ability to think critically.
Yeah, and that's part of the point of... Yeah, you know what she's saying? Like, if you do a disclaimer, suddenly someone's going to ruin the art by telling you what it all means before you watch it.
Yeah, that's...
What about a postscript? Wouldn't that be better?
Yeah, but who's going to watch that?
Nobody, but...
Given that part, yes, I agree. A postscript would be better. Keith says, I still have not watched 12 Years a Slave, just never in the mood to see it.
I had to stop partway through. Once there's a rape scene that was probably more realistic than anything you could have imagined in that scenario.
Oh my God.
The actress as part of it.
That sounds like that other
I just was like, I can't keep watching this. Although Byron is saying the end is redemptive. I'll have to give it another shot, man.
Okay, what does that mean in the context of what we're talking about? How is it redemptive?
I don't know. I don't know the ending. He probably doesn't want to ruin it.
Okay. Renee, wait, hold on. Teresa says, thank you, Brian. I watched 12 Years a Slave, and besides the crucifixion of Christ, it was the most gut-wrenching show of human suffering I've ever experienced.
Yeah, especially with the main guy who was free in the North and was captured. As you watch him slowly emotionally deteriorate, it's just...
Sheila says, we will need a lot more disclaimers if we're going to start here. Where does it end? Not that a disclaimer is bad per se, but perhaps overkill. Betty likes your idea of postscript. That way the movie was already viewed.
Or what about even, forget a long commentary from an expert. What if there's just like a... You know, in some films, they do, instead of doing filming of the story before the story, they just write it out. Like Star Wars does it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they do.
You know, and they have the thing going. Why not have just a screen that says, this is a classic piece of American film. Keep in mind, its depictions of slavery are highly unrealistic, blah, 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 and may be offensive to some viewers.
Yeah.
Viewer discretion is advised.
So what about, what I like that. And I was
better than a long drawn out, let me dismantle the whole thing for you before you watch it.
Yeah. What movies can you think of that you would be like, because you guys are saying, where does it end? Is there ever a time where you're like, oh my gosh, this needs a disclaimer?
You know, I appreciate, I listen to some podcasts that give disclaimers if there's any foul language that's included, even if it's in the context of like a raw interview with somebody. I appreciate that. It gives you an option to know. Gives you a choice.
Yeah.
But isn't there something about Gone with the Wind that it's like, what, you've never heard of this? Who are you? Where have you been? What rock are you living under? I'm not trying to say there shouldn't be one. I just wonder about just the specifics of art in the form of writing and filmmaking and audio storytelling. How many disclaimers do we need?
Yeah. Megan says, maybe a disclaimer might push some people to think critically while they view, instead of mindlessly being entertained and accepting everything. I like the idea of a written disclaimer at the beginning. Valerie loves your idea.
But you know, Megan, to Megan's point, maybe there's a different approach to doing a disclaimer at the beginning. Rather than have somebody show you in advance, which is what it sounds like they're doing, pointing out the racist things in it before you watch it. What if someone gives you something to watch for? And questions to ask yourself as you watch.
Yeah.
Teachers do that before you show a film in class. You'll go, I've got some guiding discussion questions for you, and I want you to look for X, Y, and Z, rather than give it away.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have no problem with that either, but again, you still run into the how do you handle this?
Yeah.
Like I've seen people who object to some of the racist language in Huckleberry Finn.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that coming up. Megan says, oh yeah, she works for Moody. You didn't even know. You didn't even call it out.
She does?
That's why she's so smart.
Yay! No wonder she's
Welcome, Megan. Sheila says Uncle Tom's Cabin is pretty intense as well.
Yeah.
She read it. I didn't even know there was a movie. I read Uncle Tom's Cabin recently, like 2000, it wasn't recent, 2012, and really liked it. I didn't know there was a movie, number one, and forget the fact that it was intense. Like, I'm missing out. Are there a lot of versions, or is there a...
I'm not a voracious reader, my friend. I didn't
no, the movie. Have you watched that one? Oh, okay.
But if that's the case, like really, how many people do you think it is? You're right. There's some people who need the disclaimer, but like, come on. How many people need a disclaimer before Uncle Tom's Cabin to go, you know, they use the N-word in here and it's very bad.
Oh, yeah.
You understand the historical context.
Yeah. I think what we're saying then is if it's art and fiction, leave it alone. But if it's nonfiction, like a documentary or... Because I've seen that with documentaries or real TV. I've seen disclaimers like, this is disturbing, it has whatever. Right?
Sure. Perhaps,
Would that be the line then?
Maybe. I don't know if you can draw a firm line. I'm torn. I wish I had a perfect answer here. I'm torn.
Yeah. Kathy's explaining the movie. Brittany says, I think the Holocaust has similar undertones, as well as tribal wars around the world. People are viewed as less than people. It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah. I mean, it's all over the place. No question.
Yeah. Disclaimers. Yeah, Disney started last year.
I remember being crazy. Like, I didn't need a disclaimer before the Peter Pan What Makes the Red Man Red song interlude to go, oh my goodness, this is here?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've seen it.
Which one? The Red Man?
Yeah, what makes the Red Man Red?
I saw it. I actually came all the way to my adulthood without watching Peter Pan. I watched a theater production of it because my son was in it. And they did not, usually what people do is they do the revised one without all these things. And she wanted to do the original. And I knew it, but I haven't seen Peter Pan. So I didn't know how outrageous it was. And when I was sitting there, I was looking around like, oh my gosh, am I the only one bothered by this? Yeah. It felt very uncomfortable.
Well, and then the film, yeah, I question that decision. And the film itself, the caricatures of Native people are so bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
Robert.
Brittany says, how many books do I read? I don't read now as much as I would like to. It's so sad. So it's not even.
You listen to books more now.
Yes, that's what I do. I love it. And for nonfiction, one of my favorites, just off the top of my head, one is Nabil Qureshi's book. I'll post it in a little bit. Losing Allah, Finding Jesus. Oh my gosh.
Is that right? Crescent and the Cross, or the?
It's Losing Allah, Finding Jesus. I read it. I do audiobooks because of my kids and all that. It's so awesome, and my favorite thing is that he reads it himself. Another book that actually I really like, please look for it and just read the description. I actually read this book. It's called The Meaning of Man by Viktor Frankl. He's a survivor of the Holocaust. That's such a deep book. Please look it up and it will transform you. Teresa says, these historical films were written and produced by white people. They always told the story from their perspectives, yes, and then imposed what they thought others felt or experienced. Fast forward to the present, white people are still attempting to speak for black and brown people, hence they feel no need for disclaimers of any kind. Yeah. It's almost like a rebuke. Art imitates life, so to me, disclaimers are situational.
Interesting. Wow. Let me look at fast forward to present, white people still attempting to speak for black and brown.
Hey, Rob, you didn't even read that. You don't care? Thank you, Rob, as a black man pointing out my hair. That is super awesome.
I won't be offended, Rob, that you totally ignored my hair.
Awesome. You said what?
You totally ignored my hair.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, Rob.
Yes, Carrie. That's the book, Seeking Allah. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a great book, yes. And then I'll put Viktor Frankl's book. Guys, it's such a deep book. Oh my gosh. Viktor Frankl. It's so deep, and it's
that.
Yeah. It's a what was I gonna say? It's not a quick read because you really want to soak it, but it's a small book. That's what it's called. Man's Search for Meaning, and it's he experienced. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
He experienced the Holocaust. He's a survivor of the Holocaust. Man, that book is good. Woo! In fact, that would be one I would reread. Adrian, did you read Adrian? So you want me to read it? Personally, when I put on a movie, it is for entertainment. I don't want you to tell me about it before I watch it. I hate spoiler alerts. A documentary is another story. I'm not watching it for entertainment, but for information. Old movies are just that old. They're just that, old movies. Sometimes we go too far in trying to correct and overcorrect the unnecessary things and leave off what truly needs to be corrected.
Yeah, I tend to lean towards that. But there's really great points coming here.
Amora says, I read Uncle Tom's Cabin. I thought it was a great book. Yes, great book. Showing the likeness of a Christian man. I think a lot of people misquote or misrepresent Uncle Tom. Wow. Brittany says, oh yes, please tell me what you think about Viktor Frankl. Teresa says, Man's Search for Meaning is so painful yet rich. Yes, yeah. That's why you can't really read it quickly. Oh, it is so deep. It's amazing. Mike, you said they were good. Which one did you like? Was there somebody? Brian says, the 10 Commandments is one of my favorite films, and DeMille does give somewhat a disclaimer before the movie. Do you like that movie? That's an old one, right?
I don't watch all that. I don't like black and white movies.
Yeah.
I like Captain America, you know. I like Iron Man. Sorry, guys, I'm not an artsy film kind of person.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I know. I don't care. If somebody thinks it's bad, I just don't care.
Oh, wow.
I still don't want to watch it. Like, I don't... Why would I spend my time doing that? Ugh.
Kathy says, more recent movies, Green Book, it was controversial because it was told from a white perspective. I agree with that. And even as people are suggesting books and movies to watch to understand systemic racism and all that, I've even heard some people push back on The Help and what somebody said about the perspective is coming from. So I think for those who care, being mindful, I've heard that, yeah.
Really?
But I haven't watched The Help. But saying, be careful. If somebody could help me with that, if you know what I'm talking about, Kathy, you will probably know. But that certain things, when you don't have the right person right in the movie and all that, the perspective that comes across may not be completely correct. Valerie says, I used to love the original Little Rascals. You've mentioned that.
Yeah.
Growing up, but when I became an adult, I remember a show when they had a talent show. The white kids were displayed in tuxedos and gowns. The black ones were displayed as butlers, maids, and ragged clothing. I realized this contributed to many mindsets.
Yeah, Valerie, I have a lot of memories as a kid watching The Little Rascals. Sunday mornings it was on. So many funny episodes. And we got a compilation disc for my kids years ago when DVDs were things people bought, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember watching it with the kids, and there was one episode in particular where, oh, goodness, there was like a racist cook. There was a black cook who was a predator of women. Stymie's dad was in jail.
Man.
I mean, there were so many horrible stereotypes. Sarah and I, we ended up just throwing it out. We were like, oh gosh.
Why does it matter besides your kids? Like, why would, because The Little Rascals is a big deal. Why should somebody be like, dude, it's like, it's a movie or it's fiction?
I just felt that in the context in which I was living and with my kids, it's just, it's not something I needed them to be exposed to right now.
Yeah.
It wasn't about me. I was offended by some of it and remembering some of the laughter or the other parts, but
yeah.
I just didn't need my kids to watch that and have to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brittany, what's up? Man, you all sound for those who are talking about movies and books, people I would hang with.
Your sister's here. What's up, Giselle?
Giselle! Hola, Gisi.
I'd like to point out that Janelle's brother, Edwin, is in town as well.
Yeah, Edwin!
And
woo!
He is not here.
Edwin is like, oh my gosh. If you love Brian, you would just love Edwin. Like, no comment.
So now nobody likes your brother.
No, everybody loves you.
No, but... Yeah,
okay,
he's not here. He's a punk. He talks trash about me all the time when I'm not around. I know about it. You can tell him I said that, Giselle.
Oh, I told him how Edwin was talking junk about Brian. Edwin's ready to take Brian on, but Brian gets all scared. Teresa says, The Help gave me visuals of the stories my grandmother told me. She and many of the women in our family, her age, were domestics. It's one of my favorite films. My grandmother raised white children, and she loved them, and they loved her, but she wasn't treated well at all. Great movie.
Okay.
Kathy says,
I feel better now.
I got into a discussion with a friend about The Help who said she was going to write about racism in Connecticut. It was good to put words to something that was below the surface and not talk about.
Yeah.
Brian says, by the way, the Charlotte Heston version of 10 Commandments is full color. Brian. And comes on Easter.
By the way, I don't care.
Oh!
It's not even good color. It's Technicolor. So that sucks.
Oh, interesting.
I don't have time for all those old movies. They're so boring. Oh.
Well, yeah, you got to find something.
The only old movies I've ever liked are Alfred Hitchcock films.
Wow. Have you watched The Color Purple? Because I've never watched that.
Yeah.
Was it good?
Uh-huh.
Was it something that... Oh, so you watched?
It's been a long time, but yes, it was good.
I've never...
All those hearts coming in are for me.
They're for you, yeah. Come on, hashtag Team Janelle, people. Keith says, as a substitute teacher a few years ago, the assignment was to watch the movie To Kill a Mockingbird. The school, Garfield Heights, in the class, English class, The honors class was well behaved, paid attention. The large regular class, not so much. I tried to sell the benefit to the rowdy class, but it was a tough sell. The students were predominantly African American. By the way, I just watched Just Mercy. It was amazing.
Wasn't it amazing?
Y'all gotta watch.
It's free.
Just Mercy. It is free. Warner Brothers made it free for the whole month of June. So go watch it. I don't want to mess the ending because actually midpoint I was like, oh my gosh, like it tricked me. Very well done. I could see what you say about Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan. I know. Sorry, guys.
He's good, isn't he?
He's very good. Please don't miss the ending. And I was
mad
because you can miss it.
Yeah.
You gotta go past the credits.
Like the first initial credits,
because it goes for a while though.
Because then they come back. A bunch of people missed it in the theater when I saw it, but they come back and give you some postscript on the characters. Part. Some of them are shocking.
Shocking. So please go watch Just Mercy with your family. I watched it with my boys. Isaiah was like, oh my goodness, this makes me want to be a lawyer. And then they started handing out positions because Isaiah wants to be a reporter. That's his dream. So he was like, you can be a lawyer. You're going to be a cop. He was like, and then I'm going to be a reporter outside the court case talking about you guys. Because they were touched by Michael B. Jordan's position about the difference you can make if we get black people in the system. Like we need people in positions as judges and lawyers, and what Michael B. Jordan's character did based on a true story. Lisa saw it. She says she didn't realize it till later. So know when you're watching Just Mercy, it's based on a true story.
But
I know, Rob. Please don't be disappointed.
But Rob never watched E.T., so he's got his own problems in life.
I got a story about E.T. I watched E.T. when it was the 20-year anniversary or 30-year, and we were at the theater, and I had never watched it before, and then I was yelling out, don't die, don't die, and Len was so embarrassed. He's like, Janelle, this is old.
and by the way, Carrie is so wrong, even though you get the top fan label. Brian, don't you realize Star Wars 4, 5, and 6 are old movies now?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mid to late 70s? That's my cutoff.
No, dude.
That's my cutoff.
Old as heck, because I just started watching them, and after you watch 1, 2, and 3, you're like,
Johnelli.
You gotta watch 4, 5, and 6. It's so dumb.
Gone with the Wind's from the 1930s compared to late 1970s, please.
Betty says she loved Just Mercy. Excellent. Favorite movies are those based on true stories.
By the way,
I agree.
I don't know if you realize this, but Michael B. Jordan's character plays a very famous civil rights attorney. Mm-hmm. And that civil rights attorney is one of the primary interviewees in 13th.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
I went back and started watching 13th again this weekend on Netflix, which is very informative, really good to watch.
13th, please watch it.
And that's civil rights attorney.
It's free too on YouTube. Go to YouTube. It's free.
So,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Kathy says, what's that movie about desegregation where they put a black woman and the KKK man together on a committee? You probably know this.
You know, I don't know.
Keith says he hasn't watched Just Mercy. He heard it received a lot of support, and one celebrity in particular bought out a theater.
Yeah, Keith, it's free right now. I saw it's free on Amazon. It's free on
Prime.
On Apple TV as well. It's everywhere for free.
Yes. 13th is free, y'all. Please go watch it on YouTube. Lydia says, what is it that you're saying here?
He's replying to... You always miss when they reply to people.
I know. You never watched... Y'all laughing at me because I haven't watched a lot of movies like this. Like,
It's because you're too busy reading a 1,000-page book.
I know. When I went to Oberlin College, a lot of my friends, because I was very disconnected from culture, they took on the project on the weekends to have me watch key movies like this so that I could understand the black culture more. They were like, dude, you got to watch this.
What'd they have you watch? Like Barbershop or something?
One of them was...
Coming to America?
Tina Turner's movie.
Oh, What's Love? Yeah.
They were like, you have not... And so you got to think,
I
grew up in a Latino thing, and so they grew up watching this. So when they would hear things like, you haven't... What? And so they're like, you got to watch this. So they would sit me down and watch this stuff with me.
All right, people, we got to get out of here.
Free on Prime. Yes, Keith, go check it out.